Today's session is focused on revenue management, best practices, and tools that will help you succeed. An overview of data analysis specific to the hospitality industry by Samir Kulkarni, founder director of Revnomix. Followed by the next session would be the importance of data-driven decision making for hospitality. That session would be by Prakash Singh, the founder director of Revnomix again. And this will be followed by Q&A for all attendees and feedback and closing moderated by Shanta Kamath, Director Business Solutions at Revnomix. To expand the agenda a bit, you would also, as takeaways for today's webinar, you would get to know how data has been utilized by other industries like retail and airlines. You'd also get an overview of data analysis and business intelligence tools where you'd be introduced to the product called Strategics. Let me now introduce you to the experts, our speakers today. Prakash Singh brings in more than 15 years of revenue management expertise across active, passive, and consulting verticals in hotel revenue management. He has acquired revenue management skills from some of the major brands like Hilton, Starwood, and ISG. He started his revenue management career at IDEAS, and his last assignment was at IHG corporate office in Southeast Asia. Prakash manages the entire revenue management operations, including remote RM, consulting, and day-to-day operations and deliverables at Revnomix. Samir Kulkarni is a data scientist with over 20 years of experience in applying data science in hospitality domain. He has developed state-of-the-art data analytics and business intelligence. Before venturing out to start Revnomix, he was associated with IDEAS Revenue Solutions for over 10 years, where he was involved in developing various forecasting and optimization models using complex mathematical and statistical concepts. I'm talking about Samir Kulkarni, in case you didn't listen to, or if I got disconnected in between. At Revnomix, Samir heads research and development. I now invite Samir to begin the session. Samir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Let me just bring my presentation. All right. Thank you again, Jacob. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming together. It has been a great journey with IDEAS Next in putting together Strategics, a unified cloud-based business intelligence solutions for the hospitality industry. A quick brief about ourselves, Revnomix. At Revnomix, we develop simplified solutions for the hospitality industry to facilitate easy data processing, informed and accurate decision making. We also utilize our experience along with the latest technology and customer-centric approach to make data analytics and revenue management seamless for our clients. Today, we are going to talk on your data, your opportunity. We hope it will help you gain a first-hand account of how data can open the new opportunities to monetize and enhance revenue generating capabilities. In current day and age, if one wants to be successful in any endeavor, then one must be well informed, and this information is nothing but data. Data can be very prominent aspect in the modern day digital life. The big five companies of data industry, that is Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, always crave for data. Here is a quick infographic about how much data these companies acquire about us on a regular basis. It is said that data is like uranium, most radioactive substance. Like uranium, we must enrich data and store it accordingly. Discard the trash appropriately and safely as well. If we don't, then we end up being in trouble, just like Facebook, how it got into a lot of trouble for the data it was sharing with the third party consumers in Cambridge Analytica scandal. Nearly every website we access gather cookies on us. This information is used for marketing and data analysis for learning more about us. I remember an incident. I was talking to a friend of mine regarding buying a motorbike. The next thing I noticed that there were a flurry of email in my inbox and advertisements on my browser related to motorbikes and the spare parts. I was wondering how was this possible, only to realize that we were surrounded by Alexas, Siris, and Google Assistants who can actually track us and gather most of the information about us without we even noticing about it. These digital world giants know more about us than ourselves. We all often use applications or web apps or mobile apps to purchase online or book tickets from flights to movies or even order food. The online travel portals contribute a sizable portion of revenues for the hotels as well. Knowingly or unknowingly, we share highly detailed buying patterns with such shopping portals or retailers as we shop on daily basis. Many a times, we provide data through customer IDs tied with personal identifiable information, what we call PII, such as credit cards, emails, loyalty cards, all these compose of PII. We often see recommendations while we search for something on these portals. We all have observed that the online shopping portals provide the suggestions that what to buy along with the one that we have shown interest to buy. And we very often wonder how these portals know about us and provide appropriate suggestions or recommendations that we end up buying most of the times. These portals spend a lot of time and energy in analyzing the PII data to determine how to sell more to us. Most of these portals use collaborative filtering algorithms of data science to match our profiles with the details of other users and their buying behaviors. Many a times we end up buying extra items than what we had originally planned for. They have been able to monetize the data that they have assimilated over a decade now. The data opens opportunities. I would like to share another case study here. How using big data and predictive analytics, one can be frighteningly accurate in profiling the customers or users and their buying patterns and behaviors. This is about Target, a Minneapolis-based multi-brand retail store. The story starts with an irritated father entering a Target store in Minneapolis, talking to the store manager, complaining about the store sending his daughter a sale booklet for baby clothing, cribs, diapers, even though the daughter is still in high school. Shocked and surprised, the store manager had no other option but to apologize to the outraged father. Few weeks later, the same store's manager got the call from the same father to say sorry because the father had a word with the daughter only to realize that his daughter was indeed pregnant. Target knew this even before the girl told her parents. How did Target achieve this? The data scientists at Target were studying the buying patterns of would-be mothers using their PII data. They noticed that such women buy large quantities of unscented lotion and large amount of calcium, magnesium, and zinc capsules. Using all of this shopping behavior data, the data scientists could assign a pregnancy prediction score to customers based on the purchases and the volume of purchases about 25 different products in store. Using this score, they were able to predict with such precision. Scary, isn't it? Even in our hospitality world, we also accumulate good amount of data about our customers. We can track the repeat guests, their preferences, spending behavior, booking behavior, etc. However, it is only in recent times that hoteliers have started to utilize this data and create opportunity to woo guests and make additional revenue for the hotel. Most of the data analytics that we use in hotels revolves around revenue management. The revenue management is one of the pioneering subjects of data science. In here, we use historical performance data along with current business trends and predict demand patterns and recommend appropriate pricing for rooms, banquet events, so on and so forth. The hotel industry in recent times has been privy to some of the very interesting data sources like competitor rate shopping, industry benchmarking data, data of future demand in the market, etc. All these sources provide additional data points for making robust forecasting and assisting the hotel in data-driven decision making. Now, let's look at the data analysis steps. Broadly, there are 5 steps. First one, objectives, next measurements, data collection, data analysis, and interpretation or inference. Let's start with the objectives first. It is said, if you understand a problem thoroughly, you have half solved it. Similarly, the objectives of data analysis must be identified and defined in detail at the start of the analysis itself. The analysis can target to answer few of the questions below. These are just examples. Why the hotel is not able to achieve one or more RGI in RGI? When the hotel will be able to break even? How is the competitor's product different? What is the cost of serving a room? Next one is measurement. Identifying the goals and objectives along with the measures before starting the process of data analysis provides the direction and avoids meaningless data analysis and determines exactly what data is needed as well. All the data that is gathered to achieve the objectives can be converted into useful informations that will assist the organization and its decision making. The measures can be time bound, like daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, etc. Can be against benchmarks, or even they can be measures like size, quantity, currency, etc. Few examples: measuring the hotel's performance against market benchmarking data to identify what is hotel's RGI for a given time frame. Or it could be what is the shortfall in revenue in absolute revenue terms or currency terms and in percentage terms to achieve the break even for the hotel. Which market segment or outlet is falling behind to miss the targets of achieving the break even by what value for the hotel. It could be a SWOT analysis of the hotel. Or it could be understanding the cost of floral decoration at each room. So these could be the measures. The next one is data collection. It is always good to collect more data, and especially from more diverse sources. And at the same time, we should be able to dispose of the unwanted data safely and securely. Remember uh, the incident of Facebook that I mentioned earlier. Data collection helps in finding more actionable insights. Some of the data sources and data points that we should always consider using while doing the data collection for data analysis purpose are market benchmark data, something like STR, daily transactional level data or reservation data. We can even consider trial balance or other financial data to do the financial analysis, daily POS data or outlet-wise production or cost data for F&B analysis, purchase or inventory and stores data for understanding the materials requirement and that analysis. Once we have the data, now the process of data analysis. Now it is the process of applying the statistical and logical procedures to describe and illustrate, consolidate and evaluate the data and derive the insights. The data stored is used for creating visual analytics for better representation and creating better understanding of the business patterns. This is used to identify the normal patterns and also to spot the anomalies through using appropriate analytical process. The data is also used for generating forecasts and predicting the future course of business and to derive prescriptive insights. Here are some operational KPIs that we will be in a position to derive out of analysis. Room per day, ARR or ADR, RevPAR, RPC, rooms revenue per available square feet or square meters. Similarly, we can obtain financial KPIs like revenue cost ratio for each revenue generating department or contribution of departmental revenue to the total revenue. Similarly, departmental cost to the total cost, so on and so forth. Business patterns like day of the week contributions by market segment or room type or outlet will help us in generating forecasts or predicting the demand for each of the revenue generating departments. Considering the above factors, we can derive descriptives like what should be the rate at which the room should be sold to corporates to achieve the budgeted contribution from that segment. Or it could be what should be the minimum guarantee for a banqueting event. We can derive many such inferences. Now the last one, that is the interpretation or understanding whether the data analysis has actually yielded the results. So this is where the data analyst does the retrospection to assimilate whether the entire process of data analysis has actually yielded the desired results. And if it has, then what is the impact of those results on the business? Similarly, if it hasn't, then what went wrong and how to fix it to arrive at desirable results. With that, I stop here and I invite my colleague Prakash Singh to take it forward and talk about more about the data-driven decision making. Thank you. Prakash, over to you.
Thank you, Samir. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for your time today. So, as a next step, obviously, we try and understand how data-driven decision making really impacts hotel and what really goes at the back. Let me quickly share my screen with you. Okay, so in hotels, every moment, literally every moment, we collect a lot of data. It's actually plethora of data that we actually get in hotels. For example, as a guest books in through an online channel, it creates data at the back. The guest checks in at the front desk, there is data created. Housekeeping department turns down a dirty room to a clean status. Again, there is data created. So actually, we live in a lot of data every moment. Every action that we take in hotel every time creates data. It's about data. Now, what we do with this data and why it is so important to have a very incisive thought process around how we actually utilize the data to our advantage. Now, essentially, goal of data-driven decision making is really to create insights which are meaningful and usable to actually generate more profit, optimize our operations, improve on quality, and of course, ultimately, it all impacts into a greater goal, which is actually improving on the value of the asset. What we really do with the data, as far as now Samir informed us a lot around how data works across industries in various other sectors, but specifically to hotels, what we do with data. Now, data generally is a very valuable asset and it should be treated as a valuable resource all the time. The goal of data and decision making around the data within hotel industry revolves around a lot of factors like forecasting. For example, forecasting the room by segment by source is a critical aspect because in hotel industry we deal with limited inventory. It is not that I will be in position to accommodate every demand available out there in the market. So it becomes very, very critical for me to have absolute understanding of how the demand forecast is around for any given day in future. And then we segment this down based on the segment's volume attribute, the rate that that segment can get us. So for example, let's say you're estimating a day, probably in a 100 rooms hotel, where the demand available probably is of 150 rooms. So we have absolute clarity that this particular day is going to be a sold out day. That's an understanding. Now, what do I do about it? How do we go about it? So the simple fact is we obviously look at what is the most profitable piece of business that we should accommodate and do a right business mix for that particular day, which not only produces the highest revenue for that day, but also impacting the shoulder nights in a way the way we take control really on the forecasting piece. But then how to forecast? Forecasting again gets very critical just because we have to have a lot of thoughts around the historical data, recent trends, future on the books, how the demand pace is behaving, how the demand is actually arriving, how far out it is arriving in terms of lead time, etc. So data will help us to create those thoughts and really identify, obviously, the opportunities, also the threats, and we're able to take real control. Now, moving on to the next step, which is really post-forecasting. Once we have estimated the demand, obviously we price the hotel based on what sort of demand that we are witnessing or sort of demand that really is yet to arrive. So I can actually take control in terms of my pricing. It's not only about what I do or what I feel. It is also very much market driven. So I also keep eye on my competitors in terms of what rate they put, when they change, how far out they react to any changes in the market conditions, so on and so forth. Now, all these information comes out of data. That's the reason we have several systems around rate shopping. Each hotel would have a rate shopper. We try and analyze certain things out of it in our own ways, but well, that's again a data. And the pricing decision that we take is obviously data driven, which is Again, coming out of the demand estimation or so-called forecast that we did. Now, having right price point is a thing. But then we get into the next level of complication, whereby I now have multiple channels to offer my rooms at. And each channel has its own attribute in terms of sort of commissions they charge me, the cost of booking that is involved with that particular channel. Again, now when I only have 100 rooms to offer, I offer it to people who are the most profitable. So it's not only segment, now we're coming down, drilling down to distribution channels also. So one of the OTAs might charge you heavily, while other might not take that much of commission. So it's just very basic experience-based knowledge that we pick up the room which is more profitable, or channel which is more profitable. That's about pricing. Also choosing on the right distribution channel. Procurements, day-to-day basis, we have a lot of procurements at the hotel in terms of what we buy, what is its shelf life, how many days it's going to be there, what is the amount of time that it should be in the stores or in kitchen or anywhere for that matter. So having that thought very, very clear. Moving on to other areas which are so very important in hotel industry now, coming down to the KPIs that we really look at right now, and how the future is kind of appearing like. So far across hotel industry, we had basic KPIs that we used to look at. For example, occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, RGI, MPI, but then that probably is just not enough in this competitive world anymore, just because hotel industry has moved on from those basic KPIs, and they have started looking into other greater KPIs such as RevPAR, total revenue per available room, RevPAS, which is revenue per available seat hour in case of your restaurants, revenue per square meter in case of your banquets, space index in terms of how my each day is moving versus same time last year, price quality matrix, whereby I'm trying to compare my price and positioning with my competitors' price and positioning, because it is very, very important for me to have absolute clarity on what quality the competitors offer and what they charge for it. And where do I stand, and what could be the potential thing that we should do. Now, what we should be aiming at when we have to do demand forecasting, price optimization, what sort of data that we should be saving and working with. So obviously, there are critical 3-4 areas that we generally kind of tend to look very often in hotel industry, right from your rooms, food and beverage, banquets, and we have individual systems across. So we have a point of sale, we have property management system, we might have sales and catering systems. So data is literally everywhere in various different systems. Now, what are the critical things that we should be doing with it? So obviously, the transaction level data is just information, but I have to turn this information down into usable patterns such as, segmenting my business down into multiple market segments, followed by, I try and create the demand patterns such as day of week, pickup patterns, wash patterns. Demand patterns are very important because be it a city hotel or resort, we see specific day of week patterns, whereby in a city hotel, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we see a lot of corporate movement, which actually keeps us a lot busy. The segment may vary from day to day, because Tuesday I might host a lot of individual guests or corporate movement, but then over the weekend when the corporate movement is not there, my strategy suddenly shifts to FIT channels, maybe probably less profitable businesses, so on and so forth. So it becomes very important that I have absolute clarity on the demand patterns, followed by distribution channels. As I covered earlier, we have to have absolute understanding about which of the channels are really profitable, so I'm able to prioritize it based on my need and what I see for each day in future. Understanding of lead time is again very important, how far out the bookings are arriving. And just the lead time is probably not good enough. We got to now start looking at the revenue pace. Revenue pace by individual segment, channel, or at all levels in terms of how am I appearing versus same time last year. For example, um, the current scenario, December is so bad probably for most of us due to obvious COVID situation. But then having a clarity around how many rooms I was holding or what sort of revenue I was holding today, same time last year for the month of December, which currently is uncomparable, but in a normal situation, it is a really helpful KPI to keep controls on, because I continuously monitor my future days, future months to see how is it appearing versus same time last year. And if I'm falling behind, of course, I take such tactical or change my strategy around how we price, what we offer, what channels do I need to offer it to, so on and so forth. So revenue pace becomes very important and critical KPI for the health of the business, just to ensure that everything is going right. And it will be right. We have length of stay. These days we're looking at it is very important to keep a very close eye on how the length of stay is developing, because we all wish to have stable occupancy across each day of week. But then that unfortunately doesn't happen. A lot of hotels would take a lot of one-nighters on a Wednesday. But then, hey, what we are doing with it? If we only accept one-nighters on a Wednesday, when I know Wednesday is busy, and I'll be over 95%. So why am I really becoming non-choosy about it? Because the demand is really high. All I have to do is prioritize the length of stay. So if I just identify simplest thing that, okay, Wednesdays are busy, I have to take at least 50% rooms at higher length of stay. So this will not only fill my Wednesday, it will also increase my occupancy on Thursday. So if I have to take such tacticals, put in such practices, we have to have data right. Now, room price I did cover, followed by the KPIs. Move on to the next slide, which actually covers on what we should be really looking at when we are um, doing the data. Data is everywhere, as I say. There's plethora of data which is available in hotels, but then we can't have everything. Like Samir mentioned, we have to pick up the right data. So uh, I can't pick up everything from the property management system, because I may not be able to utilize it well, because a lot of times data is very confusing, and we can really either get very confused or may have wrong patterns that will mislead our whole strategy. So it is important that we collect the right data, and we don't collect a lot of it, whatever that we need, we collect and keep it with us. Second most important thing is to integrate. Now, data is something uh, which can be very difficult to handle manually, because a lot in hotels we have such practices of distributing the MIS on a daily basis, a weekly sales report, production report, so on and so forth. It's all everywhere. But most of the times it is all manual. We get into the system, pull a report, try and go through it. But data is not integrated. All the data is residing in individual systems like point of sale, um, property management system, but then integrating that data to come up to usable, wholesome strategy, it's important to integrate it. Now, coming to centralize the data. As I mentioned, data is everywhere, but then we can't be everywhere with it. So it is important that we centralize the information and keep it at a central location. As Samir mentioned, data is uranium. So handling uranium could be very difficult. And we can't give our data to an untrained person to handle it, or even for that matter, the way we track the data becomes so very important. A lot of front office managers revenue managers struggle of when it comes to data integrity a lot of times because of lack of training. Probably the reservation agent or front desk may end up picking up probably the wrong segment, wrong source, wrong nationality, not because um, they don't want to keep the data intact. It's just that they don't understand why segment is so important. Because understanding the segment, what value it can bring out, is not really expected out of a reservation agent. So we got to do a lot of training to ensure that our people are aware. Then we got to integrate the data. I say integrating data or keeping data in a warehouse. Like in the current practices, everybody has hundreds and hundreds of folders done in their machines where they will save individual information. But then how long can we go with it? Because it is a lot of manual work. There is a lot of file, a lot of information everywhere. So probably if we have to work closely with data, we can't just work as we do in a manual environment. We have to have our data kept in a data warehouse. So not only keeping that data in data warehouse, it again is very important that we analyze the data. We also visualize it. Visualization of data again can give a lot of insights to people because we are hoteliers, we're mostly service driven people. We like to talk to people. But when it comes to numbers, oh, it again can become a difficult deal for us. So a lot of people like to actually visualize the data, look at the graphs, patterns, and a lot of things can be brought out of visualization of data. So I'm going to now talk about Strategix. Strategix is essentially a cloud-based platform which actually um, gives out all that necessary detailing, right from integrating with the PMS, pulling the right data automatically, collecting the data in a warehouse. Um, One is able to really correlate the information from food and beverage to rooms, um, create strategies, not only look at the historical data and patterns, it also provides a lot of proactiveness in terms of how future is building up, how business mix is building up for each particular day in future. So Strategix is a unified cloud-based platform which has a direct integration with IDS, point of sale, as well as the property management system, whereby it pulls the data directly on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis, saves the information at the back, and provides all that that we just spoke about a while ago. Um, yeah. So it is a single platform for all analytical need. Has direct connectivity with ideas. There are actionable KPIs that we spoke about around segments, source, channels, pace, etc. We are able to do all those activities on this platform very easily, and it's really smooth. So yeah, that's about Strategix, and I will now hand it over to Shanta to take Q&As.
Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I hope we've been able to, explain to you how your data can be your opportunity. Um, as Sameer mentioned, and in Prakash continued with the topic, data is something that we live with every day. Yet sometimes we are very oblivious to it. Now maybe we'll be able to understand how everything around us um, is used for us and against us sometimes. It's very important how everything that comes to us is used wisely, and something that was never considered as a resource should be now part of your resource management moving forward. Organizations have spent years managing money, human resource, capital, um, lots of other things. Um, Sometimes intellectual property as well as resources. But now the tide has turned. We need to start looking at the data available with us to understand how we use it. So, any questions that we would, you would have want to ask us, we'd be happy to address. Um, you could ask us direct, unmute yourself right now and ask us the question, or you could leave the question in the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer those for you.
So can I ask a question over here?
Certainly.
Hi, this is Siddesh here. So my question is, what are the errors a revenue manager is likely to make? Because if you just have a look at the historical patterns, let's say for 2020, the entire data can be misrepresentative, and if you just have a look at the future, then even future, is full of uncertainties. So what are the errors a revenue manager or a hotel is likely to make in today's scenario? So I hope my question is clear.
Yeah, it's a great question. So all of us go through this dilemma. Now imagine you had no data really to look at. Then what was the situation? But good thing is that historical patterns may not be relevant in the current situation. But then it is never only about historical patterns in any condition. Let's say it was normal condition, but still we just don't rely on entirely on the historical data and pattern. We do look at how future is building up. For example, let's say last year on a given day, the hotel did 80 rooms. The day is still probably a month away, and I'm already holding 50 rooms for that day. Now, I just can't rely on the fact that I will only close probably 80 rooms like what I did last year. But because my pace is well ahead of same time last year, so I might land up doing probably 100 rooms also. So it is never the case that we only rely on historical data. We always rely on historical data and pattern as well as how the future is building up. Now, most of the revenue managers or us, or what we do right now is keep eye on the way things are building up for each day in the future and build your strategies around it. There'll be a lot of monitoring needed because the situation is not normal. But then we can still optimize, maximize, and add value to the entire situation through data. Hope that answers, Siddesh. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Shanta, would you like to read out the question in chat? Somebody has asked a question.
Yes, right away. Prakash, we do have another question. What forecasting models are used in the industry?
I will let Samir answer that.
Sure.
Okay, so mostly we use time series forecasting for forecasting purpose. But apart from the time series, depending on what type of data we use, but in hotels, it is mostly the time series forecasting. In time series also there are various models like double exponential or triple exponential smoothing or ARIMA, or such models we can use for forecasting. Does that answer your question?
So I have one more question. How do we reduce noise in data? Because since I have worked on strategics, we get a lot of data, but at times most of the data can be, can have some wrong, miscodings or, some business practice if something may not be standardized at the hotel. So at that point of time, to draw an inference, maybe that data is not useful. So how do we reduce noise in data?
So mostly what happens, Siddesh, we use certain anomaly detection process, and also we have to remove the outliers. So when we have to build that methodology, and with that we can remove the outliers. So there are various techniques like IQR, that is interquartile method, or a simple averages method. So there are various ways using which we can remove the anomalies or outliers. So outliers could be on either side of the data spectrum, on the lower side as well as on the higher side.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we have one more question from Shakti.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shakti.
Sure. So we have Samir Prakash. The other question we have is, what is required to ensure data security is intact?
So it is actually the procedural question. I believe it is slightly out of this scope of this discussion, because it involves lots of security related steps that we need to take.
I think we all know how important data security is, probably not in context to this particular discussion, but then data security itself is a big topic. And we all are aware how much we do for the data security, right from all those basic things that we do in hotels, right from restricting the accesses. In a lot of hotels, we're not even able to really utilize the internet for our personal things. So it could be many things, really speaking. Right, for example, these days we also have practices like ISMS, where we certify ourselves as a data secure organization. And data is very important, I guess, and it really depends what level of security we wish to put in. So there is not one answer, to be honest.
Prakash, Samir, one more. Sorry, Jacob, go on.
Sorry, so I was just trying to say, tell Shakti that if he has a specific question, maybe you could, drop in your email ID and ask the specific question, because like Prakash and Samir said, this is quite a large topic. Data is held in various locations. So what exact location are you concerned about? If you could say that, we could send you a specific answer to that question on the email. So I hope that answers Shakti. Go ahead with Pragati's question, Shanta,
Sure.
please.
Sure. So, Samir and Prakash, we have another question as to what are the risks or challenges that are faced while managing the data analytics in our industry?
Okay, to my perspective, the biggest challenge is really tracking the data. I think data integrity is the largest challenge that we face, because the way we track the information becomes the base of all the analysis. So tracking wrong market segment or having data everywhere but not consolidated, these are some of the critical challenges which the entire industry is trying to come out of. For example, the way we manage point of sale. Currently, I'll give you an example. We were crunching a restaurant data of one of the finest hotels in Sydney, and what came out of the data, that 70% of the entries in the point of sale came out as open food. Now that's nobody's problem really, because we have spent all the money to buy the best point of sale, do everything, but then if the team members are not trained well enough to really track the information correctly, we can get up to 70% of open food entries in the entire data set, which is, I think, in my opinion, the biggest challenge. Because see, we in today's modern world, we got all the tools and capabilities to manage data. But then if the data is not tracked correctly at first place, all the tools will fail. There might be other challenges too, which I will let Samir speak.
No, Prakash, I think the tracking itself is the biggest challenge. So once tracking issue is resolved, most of the other things are operational. Those can be easily handled. So tracking is the most challenging challenge that we face in day-to-day work. Yeah.
Yeah, and to answer Pragati's question in specific, see, this is the biggest risk. If we do not track the data correctly, it will mislead. Not only in terms of showing us wrong information, but it will also mislead the strategies of future. That's the biggest risk.
We have another question which says, as to data consolidation, how can multiplication of the same data be accounted for?
No, it actually depends on how the data is stored. I mean, if you have proper data storing methodology while you are putting it into the database, there is something called normalization that we use. So if we are using it properly, then multiplication doesn't really matter. I hope I have understood the question right. And if you think it is something else, please elaborate. Or you can even send your email and we can discuss off this forum. Yeah.
We could go back to the question while we can wait for the answer, and otherwise we'll wait for the person to write back. It says, yeah, it is understood. So thank you, Samir, for that. We have another question which says that if the data that is collected, if it does not relate to the current trend, then what could we do?
I think we just answered this question. I think Shakti was the one who raised it. Because obviously the current situation is not something which is relating. So it is never the case, we only look at historical trends at all. Even in normal conditions, when we're doing projections, when we're looking at data, we definitely look at how future is building up. Somehow, this is a key thing in hotel and airline industry whereby our, bookings are open for entire future period. And then in such situations, we predominantly depend on how the future is building up to take all our controls, in terms of applying the rate control or length of stay controls, or for that matter, any control. So you will not mostly be dependent on historical information because it is probably not relevant anymore. So we got to look at the future and do our strategies based on what we actually see. So what really changes is instead of looking at historical thing, now we're looking at more of a future thing and monitoring how bookings are building up.
Thank you, Prakash. We have another question which says that is this GDPR compliant?
Yeah, I believe it is targeted towards strategics. Yes, strategics is GDPR compliant because we do not collect any personal information. The PII that I spoke about during my presentation, so we don't collect the PII information anytime in strategics. So it is GDPR compliant.
Sure. I hope that answers the question. Moving on, we have do people need to install additional software application if they already are running IDS? This again will be directed towards strategic.
Well, the hotel need not have to install anything new. It will be all the installation and all the required setup will be done by between IDS and Revnomix. So hotel has to actually source the project or opt for this particular product. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's the question. So Rishikesh was trying to ask if he's already using IDS, does he need to install an additional software or application to get the revenue management? The answer is yes. You have to get the strategics product for the revenue management functions to work as explained.
I hope Rishikesh that answers your question. Moving on, Piyush has asked if the current situation that the pandemic persists, is there going to be a change in current tactics?
Yes, it will be. Just because even if you don't want to change, you will need to change. Others will change. So when the market changes tactics, we are bound to react to it. So yes, to answer that question, the tactics will continuously evolve. We are seeing it. We are witnessing a lot of rate dilutions right now in the market. Similarly, as we move forward, we definitely should be 100% sure about the fact that the tactics would continuously evolve and prepare accordingly.
We have another question where they're wanting to know if revenue management can be automated 100%. Is that the reality?
Well, revenue management, as we know, cannot be practiced in silos, and we cannot just hand it over to a system and then take out our eyes. So revenue management is a domain where you have to keep monitoring, or you have to be on top of the situation always. So a human intervention is always required. Probably the amount of human intervention would go down as we progress and as we improve the technology around data sciences and revenue management. So there will be some intervention, but it cannot be completely or 100% automated.
Yeah, I agree with that. It will never be 100% automated because revenue management is a science. Practicing that is an art. Now, we are practicing the science as an art. It really depends market to market, hotel to hotel, situation to situation in terms of what tactics we apply. And then, hey, remember the fact that 10 years ago we only had GDS. Now we have hundreds of channels. The complication is getting much greater every single day with a lot of technologies and disruptions coming in. Remember 10 years ago, we only had GDS as somebody, as a disruptor to industry. Then we saw a lot of people. Now we also have homestays. So it can't be 100% automated. It will never be. We should not do it actually. We have to continuously keep eye on the way things are developing, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. We have another interesting question which says that, as previous year's data is one of the most important source for forecasting, what are the other methods of forecasting that are as reliable as previous data? Since I'm thinking this is coming from the fact that a lot of new, yeah.
Right. Then in this case, you'll be more dependent on the recent trends and how future is building up. So when I say recent trends, you're more dependent on how my market segment is behaving, how it has behaved in last 2 months, 3 months, what is the volume levels that I'm witnessing under a segment or from a source or from channel. And then I also take into, probably it is possible that my FIT segment has dropped by 40% versus same time last year, but recently it has been witnessing some increase. So I can at least predict that the recent trend was, I am running probably 40% behind last year. I can expect probably 30% behind last year in the coming days, considering the recent trends. So the historical data is not entirely useless. It is how we utilize to our advantage. So in this situation, we are more dependent on the recent demand trends and how the future is building up. Hope that answers. Any more questions? Great. Thank you,
Just
Siddharth.
that I think, Mr. Sorry, I think Mr. Menrad is wanting to know. I think this is related to the question that we said that revenue management shouldn't be 100% automated. He is saying, questioning if it's never going should it never be automated?
No, I mean,
Because
100% automation. See, the thing is, what we spoke about is mainly the human intervention part. Automation, if we look at the automation from data collection and data provision or providing back the data to the hotels PMS, then it can be completely automated, and most of the current day revenue management system, including RevSeed, are able to collect the data and push the data back to the PMS. But what we are trying to say is it cannot be left to the system alone to take care of it. We need to have a human intervention so that what all these systems, they are all statistical models that run at the back, and every statistical model takes some time to understand the patterns and then reciprocate or react to that. In between, if something changes, we have to take a human intervention. Has to be there.
Yeah, I think, if we take example of, let's say, more sophisticated industry like airline, where revenue management is, they follow huge automation around their statistical models, but then it is still not 100% automated, to be honest. We will always need manual intervention, at least for monitoring. Because we can't put everything on machine. It is business. So, I mean, so far, I don't see that even airline industry is 100% automated when it comes to practicing revenue management.
Menrad, we will connect with you and take these discussions forward. Do we have any more questions?
I think we are running out of time, Shanta.
Yeah,
so
yes, I think we sure.
Yeah. We should get on to the feedback and the closing, right?
Yes. Prakash, could you just move to the... Yes, so we would sincerely urge all of you to, we have two modes of sharing feedback with us. I hope you had a great interactive session and it was enriching as well. We do have, you could, on the screen, we are sharing a QR code that you could scan and share the feedback with us, as well as a link where you could connect with us with the form, and we'll be happy to consider all these questions and take your feedback ahead. I think we'll leave the screen on for a few minutes before we conclude.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shanta. So Samir and Prakash, if you could turn on your videos. I would like to thank you, Samir and Prakash, for the amazing presentation and all the insights that you have presented to us this afternoon. I'm sure it has been of immense value to our attendees today. I especially thank all of those who joined us today. If you have any outstanding questions, please feel free to type your messages in the chat window with your email ID, and we will get back to you. And those of you who have joined in late and would have missed or probably would like to hear the first part of the presentation, we would be sending the recorded, webinar over to your inbox within 24 hours, and it'll also be up on our website in the events section under the Revnomix webinar. So with that, I think Samir and Prakash, Shanta, thank you all once again for this very interesting session, and a good evening to all of those who have joined in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob and Ideas, for this opportunity.
It's our pleasure, Shanta.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you, everyone. And special thanks to Ideas for organizing this.
Thank you so much, Samir. Thank you so much.
Prakash, you are on mute.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank Jacob and everybody else for taking time to listen to us. Hope you enjoyed. Probably we'll have more sessions like this in future. Have a great day, have a great evening, and a great week ahead to all of you.
Thank you all.